Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, everyone. What day is it?
Tuesday.
Is it Tuesday?
I'm very confident it's Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's 4th of July week, so it's like a short week for us. Hopefully, all of you are getting some time with family or friends this weekend. But thank you for joining us this evening for our presentation about Stonehaven Apartments. When I think about all of the things that we've done, that people know about what we've done, that people who have attended our real estate real life, that have seen it in person, when people say, like, that's the thing I want to be involved in, or I can't believe you created that, or that's the crown jewel of the portfolio, or they're just kind of like awestruck by something, it always comes back to Stonehaven because it really is, it's a very impressive community that we've built from the ground up. And now we're going into phase 4 with our Stonehaven Apartments community. And so excited to have the opportunity to share this investment opportunity with folks and to tell you all about the history of Stonehaven townhomes, that story, and then about what we have going on with Stonehaven Apartments and how you can be involved.
New development is so exciting. It's kind of the most fun thing I feel like you can do in the real estate game. It's sort of the apex of the food chain. Definitely not your first deal you want to do. Fortunately, we've done a few deals, and it can be just about the most profitable thing you can do in all of real estate. We can take a piece of raw land that doesn't have roads or sewer or water, electricity, and turn it into a place where people can call home. And that's just so fulfilling to
Mm-hmm.
go see it, to see this thing rise up out of the ground and know that you've created this thing that 100 years from now, there's this thing that has like real enduring value. People need like food and shelter, and here's this shelter that these humans are going to enjoy for generations to come. And so awesome having our investors come out and participate in our groundbreaking for Stonehaven Apartments so they can get that amazing feeling themselves. And we look forward to sharing this with you today.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in. Welcome to everyone that is trickling in. Feel free to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're from. If you have any questions, please do pop those into the chat. Our usual practice is if we're able to answer it kind of right in the moment, we try to weave those into our presentation. If not, we do make sure that every question is answered by the end of our time together. So think of this as an interactive time together. And if you have any questions, pop those into chat and we'll make sure that you get an answer. I'm sure Rachel will also share in the chat how you could book a time with either Nick or I if you have any questions and want to do a phone call, ways to reach us by email, however is convenient for you. We hope that you get all of the information that you need today about Stonehaven Apartments, but if there's any questions you have, we're here for that as well. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, our screen share should be going up. All right, so here we are. This is Stonehaven Apartments. This is the first asset in Black Swan Real Estate Fund 4. Funnest day ever. The official launch of Fund 4 was in the evening. I think it was like 7 p.m. Central. And we actually closed on this construction loan earlier in that day. Which is just kind of unheard of
Crazy.
in new construction, right? There's usually months and months and months of waiting time, and we're going to talk about that in the presentation, how we've
Or
absorbed
years.
more years, absolutely, how we've absorbed that waiting time. And then even in a typical acquisition, it's very uncommon for a fund to close on something before the fund officially exists, but we were able to line up everything and then structure our financing such that it's pay as we go. So as we get invoices in from say the excavation company or the foundation or those sorts of things, we're able to pay those as we go. So we actually closed the construction loan for Stonehaven Apartments hours before the fund even officially existed. So if you're already in Fund 4, you definitely have ownership of Stonehaven Apartments. And if there's anything you hear today that gets you excited about wanting to be an owner of Stonehaven Apartments, you can do so by investing in Black Swan Fund 4. The website is blackswanfund4.com. This is a 506C available to accredited investors only. And there at blackswanfund4.com is all the information you would need to log into the Invest Next portal, review the PPM and the operating agreement, sign that, send over funds, watch the full Fund 4 launch webinar if that's your thing. I think it was like 2.5 or 3 hours or some crazy thing. So that's where you get the full story on Fund 4. And here today, we're going to do a deep dive into Stonehaven Apartments and why we're so excited about this deal.
I think you maybe buried a little lead there. So you talked about how we were able to close on this deal the day we launched the fund, and we did it with a pay-as-you-go construction loan. So most people don't necessarily have access to these loan products. It's relationship based. You have to have done this a few times before the bank will let you pay as you go on your construction loan. Normally, when you buy, say, an existing apartment building, you have to put down a substantial down payment on the date of closing. But if you're an experienced developer that has a really good lender that feels comfortable working with you, we just put down a small amount of money on the date of closing with funds that people had remitted in before we launched the fund. So we actually don't feed this thing for a very long time. The interest doesn't start accruing on it until the apartment building is half constructed. Typically, construction workers, they do the work, they bill your general contractor, then your general contractor draws from your construction loan. And so you're able to defer a lot of your costs, and that's one of the reasons why it can be so fantastically profitable to do new development.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in. We are clearly super excited about Stonehaven. We have loved Stonehaven for many years, and we're excited to finally have an opportunity to share a part of it with our investors.
Our usual disclaimer. So we're going to share some information with you today regarding a project that's owned by Black Swan Real Estate Fund 4. We recommend that you run this by the people that advise you, your attorneys, your accountants, your CFP, whoever it is in your life. We're not stating anything in here that is a promise of future returns. You'll see some pro formas, some past performance, some performance from Stonehaven townhomes, but past performance is not necessarily an indication of future outcomes. So make sure to do your own homework and know that all investing involves risks, and invest after you've carefully considered everything.
All right. Here we go. So this is our architect rendering of Stonehaven Apartments. That larger picture is the front view. The smaller picture is the back view. In a couple of slides, we'll have pictures of Stonehaven townhomes, and you'll see how we've constructed Stonehaven Apartments to match and to mirror Stonehaven townhomes so that it feels like one whole community. We have an aerial view of phase 1, 2, 3, and what we're considering Stonehaven Apartments to be is phase 4, and how these are all going to go together to create this comprehensive neighborhood so that we have everything from 1-bedroom apartment units all the way up to large 3-bedroom townhome units to serve people throughout their lifespan with the various housing needs that they have as their family size change, budgets change, those sorts of things. Super excited about our apartment construction style here and how not only does the fit and finish and colors match our Stonehaven townhomes, but we're going for a townhome type feel here. So one thing you may notice if you're looking at the picture is Stonehaven Apartments has single garages, much like you might have on, say, your own personal home where you pull up to your car, pull up to your garage in your car, you have a button, you push it, your own personal garage opens. There's nothing else in that garage except your possessions and your vehicle, and then that is going to have direct access to the unit. So even though these are apartment units, we wanted them to have more of a townhome feel, and so we went with these individual garage stalls instead of a large, like, shared underground parking that you might see in a typical apartment building. That's one of the things that I wanted to call out. We're going to talk a lot about floor plans, the amenity space, our balconies, all sorts of things. But if you've seen Stonehaven in real life or in one of our other webinars, it's pretty obvious to you from first glance that Stonehaven Apartments looks just like Stonehaven townhomes, and all of that is super purposeful.
So let's
talk about the fun part.
Yeah, let's talk about the fun part. So this is kind of like a mic drop moment. So if y'all don't want to hang out for the next hour, it's going to cost us about $9.5 million to build this thing, and when we're done, our as complete appraised value is $11.5 million. The lender actually didn't share this appraisal with us prior to closing because the appraisal was so favorable, and we always know it's a good thing when the appraisal is not shared prior to closing, because it usually means that that the appraised value is so high that the lender is afraid that we might go back and ask for more money for the loan or a lower interest rate or something of that nature. Right now, it's common for apartment units to cost $250,000 per unit to construct. There's a proposal in our community in Rochester right now that the city is approving for apartment units at $450,000 per unit in total development cost. These apartment units, we're building these things for like $170,000 a unit. Just an extraordinarily low development cost. There's a lot of hustle that went into that. That doesn't happen easy. It was getting very affordable land, working on rezoning that land, getting variances for that land, getting an abatement for that land, working with a builder that has They have 10 copies of this apartment building going up concurrently in like the tri-state area. So they are really good at building this product. They kind of do one thing and they do it extraordinarily well. So they're able to build it in a really inexpensive way, building in a suburban location that's a premium suburban location that reduces your construction costs compared to, like doing a infill redevelopment area in an urban core area. At the end of the day, this is an extravagant margin to have on a new development deal today. There's a lot of new development deals that just aren't penciling in altogether in our current interest rate environment. So when the appraiser and the lender saw this, saw the cost, the extraordinarily low cost we were able to build this thing for, they were blown away. And I think that's a pretty good reflection of what the as complete value will likely be, especially in conjunction with Stonehaven townhomes. So these days, really bigger is better. And the larger your apartment community, the more valuable it is, the lower the cap rate or the higher per unit value it is, because you have buyers that have a lower cost of capital. So you imagine, Blackstone is buying your apartment complex, not a mom and pop buyer, and they can afford to pay more. So between Stonehaven townhomes and these units here, we'll have 171 units. That's getting to close to kind of that 150 to 200 unit magic spot where a deal's not so large that it's out of reach for a lot of groups, but big enough that everybody wants this deal. This achieves kind of the minimum size that any institutional buyer would be interested in purchasing this deal. So I mean, this is it right here. Like a year from now, we'll have $2 million of equity in this deal, and it's pretty nice to be able to buy a deal where you just walk in with millions of dollars of instant equity.
Super excited about that. It was definitely a moment. The lender will always share the appraisal with you if it's low, because you have to figure out a plan to get that lending approved. But we know if it's about a week or so before a loan is being approved and the closing date is set and we haven't seen the appraisal yet, that very good news is coming. I think we thought there might be, I don't know, $500,000 of equity or something like that. Certainly a jaw-dropping moment for us when we had 2 million of instant equity, based on a neutral third-party appraisal that's just as stabilized. Just basically we have to build it, we have to fill it with the plan that we've already been using to fill our entire Black Swan portfolio, and particularly our Stonehaven townhomes, which is the neighbor to Stonehaven apartments. And then there's our appraised value, 11.5 million. So super excited about that. If that excites you, you can invest in Black Swan Fund 4 and have ownership of Stonehaven apartments.
Now that we've dropped the mic, let's tell the story.
Yeah. So this is a great one if you're driving or something like that and you're not able to look at your screen. Now's the time to just quickly pop your eye on the screen to understand how Stonehaven Apartments relates to Stonehaven Townhomes, because they really are like brother sister assets. And it's the success of Stonehaven Townhomes over the last many years of our building, ownership, and management of that asset that has led us to be so excited about Stonehaven Apartments. So if you're looking at the screen, the furthest top box where there's 3 buildings there, that's Stonehaven Phase 1. This was 30 constructed units. We acquired this in fall of 2020. These buildings were built in fall of 2019 and spring of 2020. And when we acquired Stonehaven Townhomes, we got these 30 constructed units. About 2/3 of them were filled with residents. We filled the remaining third as part of our property management. And then everything here you can see where there was like underlying dirt, that was a 10-acre parcel that we also acquired as part of our Stonehaven Townhomes acquisition. We then did Phase 2, which is the second red box, 3 buildings inside of Phase 2, 30 units. And we are finishing as we speak now. We're getting like certificates of occupancy every couple of days. Phase 3, which is 55 townhome units for a total of 115 townhome units inside of Stonehaven Townhomes Phase 1, 2, and 3. And we are wrapping up construction here in the next couple of weeks. We're pre-leasing all of those units. We have some data a few slides from now about the pre-leasing success of Stonehaven Townhomes. And then for about the last year and a half, this small red box at the bottom that's closest to the bottom of the screen, that in this picture is just dirt, we've been working on acquiring this land and doing many other things to it to get it shovel ready, knowing that the moment it was ready to go, we would drop it into whatever private equity fund we had available at that time and absorb all of that timeline and risk of developing this land. So new development basically has 3 phases. There's the development piece, which is a lot of like legal paperwork, accounting, utilities, working with the city, working with the architect, the builder, those sorts of people. There's construction, which you see with your eye, bulldozers, cranes, workers, those sorts of things. And then there's ongoing ownership and management. We are now in the construction phase because as we've been working on Stonehaven phase 2 and 3, we've also been working behind the scenes on Stonehaven phase 4, which is going to get the Stonehaven Apartments apartment building.
There's a great question there from Susan. What does the instant equity mean for us investors? Does it change anything with our returns in terms of timing or amount? Great question. So it's a fantastic thing for investors. That means it's going to cost us, $9.5 million to build it, and it'll be worth $11.5 million when we're done, according to the third-party appraisal that was just performed. That's not our opinion. That's a third-party appraiser that came to that assessment based on sales comparables, income, and replacement cost of the asset. So in some future state, that makes it that puts us in a very strong position to get to a cash out refi. So most developers, most builders are what are called merchant developers. So their goal is to build an asset and then sell it as quickly as they can. And this gives them an incentive, frankly, to cut as many corners as they possibly can that a prospective buyer may not notice. Our business model, what we've done with Stonehaven Townhomes over and over again, and our business model with Stonehaven Apartments is to build it, to fill it, to stabilize it, and then ultimately to do a cash out refinance on that asset. So we'll likely do a cash out refinance, sometime in that 5-year time frame that we talk about in Fund 4. And this puts us in a really strong position to achieve that when we know that we're walking in with a huge amount of equity, a margin for error, if you want to call it that, day one. I hope that made sense. Let me know if I answered your question successfully there, Susan.
Yep. So basically, instead of having to do a business plan like raising rents, allowing market appreciation, waiting for interest rates to go down, all of those things, we already have a lot of the equity that we need just from letting the business plan play out that gives us that margin to do the cash out refi. So one might think that the cash out refi would happen sooner than we would otherwise project because of all of the equity that we're creating there. Someone asked about the economy around the site. We have a slide related to that, I think, in about 4 or 5 slides, so hang tight and we'll get to that. Let's talk about our track record at Stonehaven Townhomes.
So Elaine gave you kind of some timeline. We originally purchased the first 30 townhomes in October of 2020, and then we have since constructed an additional 85 townhomes. This has been a very successful project. We originally did this, with our own money. All the construction was done with our own money because we wanted to take on that risk of learning the new construction process with our own money, not with investor dollars. This project has been extraordinarily successful. The truth is that 2021, 2022, 2023, these were really difficult times to be a builder. There was crazy labor shortages, supply chain issues. I think in phase 2, we had to switch fireplaces 3 different times because our Chinese supplier would say this fireplace would show up, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't show up. We'd order another one, that wouldn't show up. We'd order another one, that one wouldn't show up. And things are a lot easier now. Stonehaven phase 3 has been just fantastically successful compared to phase 2 and even to phase 1. So we're unbelievably excited about how things have worked out with Stonehaven. To tie this into Susan's equity question also, so with phase 2, what we did was we entitled, improved, permitted our land, and that creates equity. The bank and the appraiser will say, okay, if you were to sell this land to someone else, it's now more valuable, and they will count that as equity into your construction loan. That's exactly what we've done with Stonehaven Apartments. The land is appraised for more than what we're paying for the land, and we're able to use that equity as part of the down payment, so to speak. So it's the developer equity into the construction loan for phase 2 and phase 3. So we've done that successfully many times. We've gone through the general development plan process. We've gone through the process of hiring builders, architects, engineers, and excavators and cranes getting stuck in the mud, and all those fun things through all of Stonehaven Townhomes. And Stonehaven Apartments is going to be a relatively modest project, honestly, significantly smaller in terms of sticks and bricks and dollars that go into it compared to Stonehaven phase 2 and phase 3. It's so exciting, so relieving to work on the 4th iteration of something. Repetition is the mother of all skill and mastery, and so to take all the economies of scale and lessons learned that we have from Stonehaven 1, 2, and 3 and apply that to Stonehaven Apartments, it's going to be I'm not going to call it a milk run. I'm not going to jinx it, but it's going to be an easier project, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So Stonehaven Townhomes is in Byron, Minnesota, which is about 8 minutes west of Rochester, about 8 minutes west of where we're standing right here in our office in a bedroom community of Rochester. So obviously Rochester is home of the Mayo Clinic, Destination Medical Center, a lot of the employers here, and people live in Byron because of two things. Well, three things. It's a small town. A lot of people really like that small town feel, yet it's close to Rochester. It has phenomenal public schools. People choose to live in Byron because of the schools. And then it has a really great golf course. So those three
The
things.
best golf course in southeastern Minnesota, many would say.
There you go. Summerby Golf Course. It's right on the map there. So those three things tell you what you need to know about Byron. What we like about investing in the suburb of Byron is we actually like to invest in suburbs that don't have a main source of employment. So Byron has like the school, the city, some restaurants, those sorts of things. But for the most part, the people in Byron commute into Rochester. It's only an 11-minute commute. They commute into Rochester for Mayo and all of the other employers here. And you might be thinking, well, why would you want to invest in a community that doesn't have, a large, robust economy around it? And the reason for that is there aren't jobs to lose. So there are other communities in southeastern Minnesota that have like one major employer. And we have a fear that if we invested in some of those communities and that major employer left, that then that town kind of wouldn't have a reason to exist. That a lot of people would, flee that town, maybe move into Rochester, or move to one of the other suburbs, that they're there for that employment. Byron's kind of the opposite. People are there for their lifestyle. They choose to live there because of it being a small town, the schools, the country club, kind of a country-like setting, sort of rolling hills, and then they commute into Rochester. So that's where Byron is located. It's just like 8 minutes that way. I drive past it on my way to my personal doctor. My doctor's out that way. We like that it's centrally located to our leasing office, but has a bit of a different feel. It's a much more upscale feel than Rochester. So that's the story of Byron. And let's go back. Thank you for rolling ahead there for me.
So let's talk about our outcomes with Stonehaven Townhomes. If you look at phase 1, 2, and 3, we've created over $6.5 million of equity. So if you look at the appraised value of those phases compared to the investment that's been made in them, in the last several years, we've created $6.5 million of wealth in those communities. We actually got to a full cash out refi on phase 1 in
19 months.
In 19 months, just absolutely incredible outcome there. We've had incredible success with leasing on these units. So it can be tough doing your initial lease up when you go from a vacant building it's got a weird vibe to it, right? Getting those first leases can be very difficult. And you've got a whole lot of units to lease in a short period of time, especially in Minnesota because it's a seasonal climate. And the pre-leasing here has been extraordinarily successful. So more than half of all the units that we've constructed in phase 3 have pre-leased before they've even come online. So we just brought the first couple of units in building 5 of the 6 buildings online this week. And right now we have 43 out of 55 units that are already leased or pre-leased. So what that means is we have very few vacant units that we can lease right now, and the majority of the units are already spoken for before they even come online. So we would expect to see similar outcomes with Stonehaven Apartments. It's going to be nice to have some diversity, right? So Stonehaven Townhomes is 115 units of more or less identical units. So having some unit variety to offer people, I think, is going to be extraordinarily helpful, especially because we've timed this very carefully. So Stonehaven Apartments is going to come online next spring in time for peak leasing season. Our busiest month of the year for leasing is March. All the residents and fellows matching to Mayo, they call and say, give me a place to live right away. And this is a building that will be online in like that March, April timeframe. So we're going to be able to say, awesome, fantastic. We've got, 50 units for you to choose from. Which one would you like? And this building we expect will be full of residents and fellows in no time at all.
One of the things that we know from years of leasing at Stonehaven Townhomes is the number one reason that we lose people who are interested in Stonehaven is they don't want a unit that's a large 2 or 3 bedroom townhome. Either after they tour it, they decide it's too big for them. Maybe it's a single person, it has stairs, or it's say a couple with no other family members, or budget. And so as we decided on phase 4, we made the decision, do we do more townhomes and continue with this plan, basically, plop another building of townhomes right there on the site? or do we build something that solves that problem, right? That's the beautiful thing about vertical integration is we get feedback from our leasing team, every single day about, okay, you took John and Joe to, take a look at Stonehaven. It looked like they didn't lease. What did they say? Oh, well, they said they wanted something smaller. And we heard that time and time and time again. So that's why we created Stonehaven Apartments to fill that need for 1-bedroom units and 2-bedroom apartment units, which will be smaller than the 2-bedroom townhomes, to have a lower monthly rental rate and then to have that whole complement of housing. So we've been very successful of creating that inside of our Rochester market. We can serve everyone from a very inexpensive studio apartment all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home, and kind of walk them through the life trajectory that they go through of rental housing as they say, finish their schooling, then get promotions, then enter into a stable relationship, all the things that people go through. And we've been kind of missing that piece in Byron with Stonehaven townhomes. So that's why we're so excited about building the apartment building to fill that need in the Byron community. The rental rates at Stonehaven townhomes are well over $2,000 per month.
Some are $2,500 a month.
Yeah, and the rental rates that we're targeting for our apartment units are significantly less expensive than that. We'll talk about that when we get to the pro forma. And then when we get to the pro forma for Stonehaven Apartments, we'll share how we got what's called a tax abatement. So what that means is the city of Byron is waiving a portion of their taxes every year for many years. And it's a win-win deal because if no one built on this land, then the city wouldn't receive any tax revenue. So they're happy to receive less tax revenue for several years in exchange for eventually getting to that full tax revenue. And then obviously it's great for the investors in this project because they get higher cash flow during the early years of ownership. We have a tax abatement on Stonehaven townhomes as well that tells you how hungry Byron is for new development there, that they've given us a tax abatement for our townhome community and now also for our apartment community. And our experience with the tax abatement at the townhomes has been much better than anticipated. It's easy, the paperwork's easy, the checks arrive on time, they're actually higher than we predicted in our original pro forma for Stonehaven townhomes. So we have every reason to believe that the benefits that we get from that tax abatement will carry over to Stonehaven Apartments as well. It's also important to note for Stonehaven Apartments that the tax abatement has no restrictions. So we didn't have to agree to any type of affordability or income or those sorts of things, same as Stonehaven townhomes. The city is just in such desperate need for housing units that they gave us like an unencumbered, unrestricted tax abatement. So now shifting our attention, so that's the story of Stonehaven townhomes. I'm sure you've heard us talk about it many times over the years. If you have any questions, pop those into chat. But definitely a story of success, a story of seeing something rise out of the ground in a community that needs it, seeing clear demand for it on our leasing side, seeing staggering amounts of wealth being created over the years, and then carrying that exact same story into phase 4 for Stonehaven Apartments. So now we're going to shift our focus to Stonehaven Apartments, kind of a continuation of this Stonehaven story.
Awesome. So here's just a little bit about them. There's 56 units, kind of Class A units, big vaulted ceilings with stone countertops and premium appliances. These are new construction built to rent right next door to Stonehaven townhomes. They've got incredible amenities like private garages. We've covered a few items here. There's a ultra high efficiency HVAC equipment. So these are electric magic backs. This is kind of best in class equipment. I've spent an embarrassing amount of time kind of doing design work on this thing. I'm quite proud of it. I'm biased. I think it's a very, very high quality product. We have multiple EV chargers that we're fitting into those private garages. If you think about it, EV charging is a pretty huge problem for apartment building tenants and developers alike. How do you solve that problem? So your neighbor next door isn't stealing your EV charger. How do you install and monitor that equipment? Private garages are really the ideal solution for that. This is just a very premium community that's going to complement itself well with Stonehaven townhomes. A couple photos of the cabinetry and appliance package that we have in residences at Discovery Square. So we're going to use the exact same finishes there. We're very boring. We like to find something that works quite well and just do that over and over again. So we're using the exact same cabinets, the exact same black finger pulls with bright white cabinets and premium stainless steel appliances. So most apartment buildings, they've got a pretty frankly ineffective, unimpressive, stackable washer dryer unit that you can barely fit a load of jeans in. And we install best in class units there. You can see we have the stainless steel LG appliance package right
Full
there.
size.
Yeah, full size
Very
units.
important for me that they be full size washer dryer.
It's a big deal.
This also helps a ton with, we talk a lot about vertical integration, having the same appliances, the same paint color, the same cabinets, all of those things. It helps a ton with maintenance and turnover because our maintenance techs are experts at these refrigerators and these washer and dryers, and they know the paint swatches like the back of their hand and all of those things. So by choosing the same materials as many times as we possibly can, that helps to make our team so familiar with these materials that it lowers our total cost of maintenance.
And we do vertical integration in a crazy way. So most developers, they'll hire a builder, will then go collect bids, and we will take a look at those bids and say, is there any way that we could do that ourselves better? Have our on-staff guys go out there swinging a hammer, installing a smart thermostat. Can we go purchase those materials ourselves? Some builders hate that. We don't like working with those builders. We love builders who have an attitude of, man, these black swan people, if they can do it better than me, if they think they can do it better than me, I want to learn from them. So like we got a bid for our appliance package on Stonehaven Apartments, and then we put together our own appliance bid. We're able to lower that appliance bid by tens of thousands of dollars and get appliances that were drastically superior to the appliances that were in that builder's bid. Got a great builder, but we're also really good at ordering appliances. These are premium units with LVP throughout. We have a very specific smart door lock system that we use. So this is a completely keyless building, which is extraordinarily unusual. Most buildings, they at least give you a fob. You have something to hang on to. People, they don't like that. So we have a keyless system throughout. Little things like solid core doors. So it costs us, get this, an extra $1,000 a unit to build with solid core doors versus hollow core doors like you probably had in every single apartment you've ever lived in. It has a different feel, a different sound when you close the door. Like when you go tour that building, you're like, man, there's something about this. This is nice. $1,000 a unit, that's a staggering amount of money to get a door that's cosmetically identical to a hollow core door. Most merchant developers, they're going to sell that building. So they're going to cut that corner every time. Like no one puts solid core doors in their buildings. But because we're going to own it, we know that that's going to get us a higher quality tenant. And most importantly, it's going to reduce our maintenance cost. You don't get holes in your solid core doors. There's lots of things I could go on and on about how amazing this this building is and all the little things. I mean, we have made 1,000 tweaks to this building to ratchet down the operational expense and produce a high quality product for a lower cost. You might ask yourself, why is that a good use of your valuable time? And that's because we don't want to build one of these buildings. I mentioned this builder, they've got 10 copies of this building going around the tri-state area. We would love to be building 10 of these buildings at once. And when we get this really dialed in, when we know we can walk in with $2 million of day one equity on a building, why wouldn't we want to do that over and over and over again? So it's a good use of our time to get these things really like nailed down more than most people do.
We're already working on additional land in the Byron area. It's way too early to mention any specifics or those sorts of things, but suffice it to say, there are already conversations about how can we continue to, to build this neighborhood, both in terms of the townhomes and the apartments. So this hopefully is one of many as we continue to build out our neighborhood there. Some of the amenities that we'll have in Stonehaven Apartments is, of course, a dog park. We're the most pet-friendly property management company in southeastern Minnesota. It's a huge part of our marketing and our draw, so we'll have a dog park there. We'll have a clubhouse, a terrace. If you see the picture there, there's like the front entry, and then the next level up will be all windows, and then the third level will be the community room that will go out to a deck that looks outside. So we're really excited about how that looks, and it's just a premium finish that you don't typically see on an apartment building of this size. We'll have a fitness center, a conference center, picnic area, elevator. So at a 3-story building, that is a cost that people will often cut. We find that it drastically changes the tenant profile and the overall rental rate. So we're happy to put an elevator into this building. Nick mentioned the keyless access. Security system throughout. That's very important for our target tenant demographic. They want to know that there's cameras everywhere and that they feel very secure in their area. And then in addition to the individual garage stalls for each of the units that has direct access into their home, more of like a single family home or a townhome configuration, there will be abundant free surface parking. In the future, if we find that there's a lot of demand for that, that's an opportunity for additional revenue. So the plan for now, what you'll see in our pro forma is that we don't intend to charge for that parking, but it's an opportunity for additional revenue that could come up in years to come. We talked a little bit already about the location of Byron, why we love this community. We've been building there for about 4.5 years now and excited to continue. Then let's talk about the site plan.
So this is a crazy efficient site plan. So I don't want to geek out on you and have your eyes glaze over. There are so many things that between myself, the architect, the engineer, other members of our team that we've optimized. Here's an example. So the way the site is set up and the way we've done all of our utility poles and stuff, we won't have to cut into the public road in any way whatsoever, which is really unusual. It's very expensive to cut into a public road. There's already an existing piece of asphalt that we can use on like the left side of the property. So there's a pull in from the left side. So that's saving us from another public entrance cut there. And here's a story that I think can tell you everything about how we do business. So at the top of that diagram on that there's a little dotted line kind of above the building. So there's a very large building, and there's a vertical slope change, and there's a memory care facility directly behind our building. And what most developers would do is they would go build a retaining wall here, and it costs about $70,000 to build a retaining wall. And these are just the costs of doing business. You have to go build a retaining wall. I don't think that's necessary. So I went and met with the site administrator for that memory care facility and said, how would you like it if we made your facility nicer? And so we are paying guys on bulldozers to go out and regrade their property, to take out noxious trees, to save trees that they want to save, to plant the variety of grass that they want to plant. Why would we spend all this money to go landscape our neighbor's yard? First of all, because it's good to have good neighbors when you're doing new construction. It can be an obnoxious process. You want to keep your neighbors happy. But by grading their land, we now create this smooth gradient between their property and ours, so we don't have to build a retaining wall anymore. So it's beautiful, it's maintenance free, and it costs.
Any of you that have had a retaining wall, when I hear the word retaining wall, I just see dollar signs.
That's right. Yep.
Not in a good way.
And honestly, we've already got guys on dozers out there, right? So it's almost free. It would be very expensive to pay people to bring all this equipment out and to haul off excess dirt and stuff like that. But we're already doing all this site development. So it's going to cost us maybe $5,000, like $5,000 to make their site so much more beautiful. And it's going to save us a $70,000 retaining wall. When you can just help other people get what they want, whatever you want, it's just going to flow to you effortlessly. When you create value for all the people in your life, like amazing things are going to happen to you. There's so many. Our neighbor to the west, we had to come to a whole arrangement with them in a way that saves them money, saves us money. All of these things, that's the reason why we're able to build such a high quality product for such a ridiculously low price. It's all these efficiencies that we've picked up by collaborating with our engineers, our architects, our builders, our guys on bulldozers, all of our neighbors, and not to mention the government. So that's how we've been able to make this thing happen.
You want to geek out some more on the floor plans? I could, but I know it would deprive you of joy if I
they're good floor plans. They're good floor plans. So if you look, there's diagonals in them, which is a rare thing to see in apartments these days. Most apartment boxes are quite boring and efficient affairs. But these 2-bed, 2-bath plans, you can see it features a walk-in closet for both bedrooms, which is incredibly rare. There's a whole master suite for the master bedroom, and then a common area bathroom that's very accessible. It's got a little foot-deep hallway, so you have just that little bit of privacy to go into the bedroom wing of your apartment unit. So most 2-bed apartments these days, both bedrooms just dump straight into the living room. So if you leave your door open, your guests can see your messy laundry on your bed or something like that. And with this layout, at no point is any guest, even if they're using your bathroom, going to see your messy laundry. These are not things that I think tenants necessarily think about when they're shopping for a place to live. But when they're there, they just think, man, I really like living here. Having this whole bedroom wing, it just feels really nice and private. There's little spots, there's little voids between the tubs and shower surrounds where we're putting in shelving, where normally there's just nothing at all. It costs us almost nothing, like $30 or something like that, to make little tweaks to the framing and to the build out. And now there's some shelving there where there wasn't before. So there's a million little tweaks that we've made to these floor plans that are incredibly efficient. And then you can see we've gone all the way up to our density maximum. We're allowed up to 56 units. We have exactly 56 units because we have these really beautiful roof lines. You see on the lower right-hand corner of the left picture there, there's a unit cut out. So it gives you this beautiful stair-stepped roof line. So it looks like a suburban home. Like that's a typical stair step roof line you would see in a single family home. You never see that in an apartment building. In this case, we're able to very efficiently kind of cut out that unit that otherwise would have been there, create this really beautifully, like aesthetically fitting thing that really just makes the whole building feel premium, and do it in a way that doesn't disrupt our floor plans or creating. Most architects, what they would do is they'd probably try to like change all your floor plans to squeeze into a box, and we kept our floor plans the way they're supposed to be, and instead created some architectural interest and beauty at an extraordinarily low cost.
And this was really important to us because we wanted it to have the same feel as the townhome
Mm-hmm.
community, which is that premium roof feel, instead of say a typical flat roof that you might see on an apartment building. And we don't necessarily think this will lead to like say like a higher leasing rate or those sorts of things, but all of these things, right? The appliances, the way the doors feel, the common area space, the relatively extravagant amenity stack, the way the building looks when you drive up to it, all of it helps with that resident feel, right? Imagine, put yourself into the psychology of the prospective resident. You set aside, say, a Saturday afternoon to go look at apartment buildings, and they just all kind of start to blend together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to this one that feels like a single family home. Maybe you're a young person kind of moving out of mom and dad's house. You've lived in a single family home for a couple decades. You're moving to your first apartment. That's a very common, tenant demographic for us in our 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. And it feels like home. And that does translate to higher occupancy, higher rents, higher renewal rates. So really thinking about the psychology of our prospective residents as we're building this space and making it feel very much like home. We talked a little bit about the tax abatement already. So I described what a tax abatement is. It's basically the city says, hey, if this was bare land, we wouldn't be collecting very much tax revenue anyway. So we're happy to receive less tax revenue in the early years in exchange for getting up to the full tax, mill rate on a multifamily building. In this particular case, it will be 2033 that the tax abatement will end. And so it's a win-win deal for everyone. And we were able to get a tax abatement for Stonehaven townhomes and then carry that same plan over to Stonehaven apartments. So we were approved for a $300,000 tax abatement. It will last for the first 7 years. And the way it works, if you're able to take a look at your screen, is anyone that's done new construction knows that bare land has the lowest amount of taxes, right? So that's the time when we don't want our tax abatement to kick in. We don't want the city to say, oh, we'll take care of some of the taxes when there's no taxes. And then when a building is first constructed, the first year usually has a much lower assessment, and then the assessment value goes up over time. That's common in 99% of new construction projects across the whole country. And so the tax abatement phases in over several years so that when we're in our peak tax years, that's when we get the largest amount of abatement. So in 2029 through 2032, we have an 80% tax abatement of the city of Byron's portions of taxes to lower our overall net taxes as much as possible. And what that means is that will increase the amount of cash flow that's happening in the building that will obviously then go out to investors in terms of getting our distributions out as early as possible, getting to that cash out refi as early as possible. When we're in that infinite rate of return period and doing quarterly distributions, we'll have more cash flow to distribute out during that time. And it lasts for the first 7 years of the building. So super excited about this. We've loved working with the city of Byron. They've enjoyed working with us. And we're excited to help them grow their community and fulfill a very desperate need for housing in that community.
Yeah, it's an extraordinarily favorable abatement. Just most people, they have to jump through all kinds of hoops, have affordability covenants, or we want your building to be pink. The government kind of attaches all kinds of strings to it. And I mean, to be honest, Byron just really likes working with us. When we sit down and talk to them about a project, we say, what would you like to see? And then based on what they say, we bring back a proposal to them. And it took, probably 9 months of meetings to get this abatement through, and they're not easy meetings. I mean, you have to, I got a chance to sit down with the mayor, talk to him face to face, and I talked to the Economic Development Authority, then talk to the city council, and I love Byron. So they have these meetings at 5:30 in the morning.
6:30.
6:30. There we go.
You have to get up at 5:30.
I have to get up. Yeah. They said, if you're going to come beg for money, you better wake up early. It's just such a ruthlessly pragmatic approach to it. And if you can't be bothered to wake up early, then we're not going to give you any money. They're amazing to work with. Like they want good things. They want to work with good people, and they've been happy, even eager to to do more projects with us with the success of Stonehaven Townhomes. And this is one of the most lucrative development incentives that I've ever heard of in terms of like you're getting just a pure tax abatement for for doing the job that you're supposed to do for creating housing, and the city isn't attaching any strings to it that slows the project down or makes it harder for us to operate the asset.
Very good. A question came in is who is the architect? So our architect is CRW.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about our pro forma.
So we could spend a ton of time talking about this. Again, this would be a good time if you're listening to this to go pull this thing up and take a look at it. A lot of people will do 5-year discounted cash flow analyses. I don't think that that's a great way to look at things. It should be a very simple process to figure out what your apartment building should do. So on the left, we've got September 1, 2025, and on the right, we've got years 2026 through 2032. So it's truly that simple. How do we think this thing is going to perform right after we get done building it? And then how do we think it's going to perform in the years thereafter? We're not assuming that rents go up, that there's 3% or 5% organic rent appreciation. If we just hit the numbers that we think we're going to hit today, which are significantly lower numbers than what we're already achieving in Stonehaven townhomes, what will our outcomes be? So we've got our rental rates there, 1,500 a month for a one bed and 1,700 a month for a two bed. And again, that's compared to 2,000 all the way up to 2,500 for our Stonehaven townhomes. Uh, Developers will tell you, if you're ever assuming a lower pro forma rent rate on your new stuff versus your old stuff, you're probably in good shape. When you're reaching on rental rate, if you're trying to build like a more premium community, that's when that's an unproven number. So just an incredibly safe play there. We charge a building service fee or utility fee that includes water, sewer, trash, common area expenses, lawn, snow. It's the same fee that we charge in all of our properties. So that's quite proven. This will be a very pet friendly asset with a pet park and huge spaces for your pets to run and play, all LVP flooring. So I think it's very conservative to assume that we'd have only 30 pets in that building. We have a high-speed internet package that we've negotiated with a local internet service provider. They provide gigabit, symmetric gigabit fiber to your unit service. So every single tenant has their own router and they have their own dedicated symmetric gigabit connection. We just charge $55 a month for that. And that would usually be like over $100 to pay retail for that. We have negotiated that down all the way to $35 per month with that provider. And they install the cabling, they install the routers, and they provide all the tech support. So it's an incredibly, incredibly favorable deal that, again, reduces the cost. We have almost no data cabling costs in this entire project. We were just paying for the security cameras. Looking through all these expenses here, I don't know if there's any expenses anyone wants to hone in on particularly. The taxes will be very low when we start, only $20,000 per year, and I expect it'll be about $125,000 as things get to full tilt. Our insurance is extraordinarily inexpensive, so there's ways that we're building this asset to optimize its insurance expense. Because again, we're not a merchant developer, we're going to hold this thing, so we want to build it in a way that reduces one of our largest operating expenses. Our R&M and cleaning, very affordable. Again, we've built the asset that way. We've actually installed janitorial closets in strategic locations. We do in-house lawn and in-house snow, so there's a tiny little closet that you can't quite see. It's like right next to the front door where we put our bucket of salt and our shovel. So you don't have this, kind of untidy thing that's right there in your lobby, but it's right, it's right there and ready, accessible for your staff to clear snow when things are snowing. These are the little things that merchant developers never put into their asset, and that really ratchets down our cost for repair, maintenance, lawn, and snow. Also helps to be next door to Stonehaven Townhomes. So we've already got our guys on the riding mowers. They literally don't need to get off the mower. So there's a dedicated riding mower in a maintenance garage at Stonehaven Townhomes. There's a guy patrolling around on that mower. This asset does not need to buy a mower. It doesn't need to get a guy. The guy is already there, and it's just going to take him an extra, hour or something like that to just drive over to Stonehaven Apartments and mow the lawn. Same thing with clearing snow. We have a very sophisticated, tractor setup for snow clearance, and again, we've already got all that stuff there. So these are way lower expenses than you typically pay for these costs associated with this. Elevator expense, we ratchet that down because we get to pick our elevator vendor. So one of the elevator vendors, they have more upfront costs, but their service contracts are, I'm sorry, they have more upfront costs, but their service contracts are less expensive. And there's another elevator that vendor that's the other way. So their upfront cost is cheaper, but their service contracts are unbelievably expensive. Well, which elevator do you think the merchant developer installs? They always install the cheaper elevator to install, but then you own this ongoing operation expense from here until the end of time. Our management is a 10% all in, which is a huge savings, especially when the asset's being stabilized. So we're out there, we're working our hearts out to do that lease up. And most management companies would charge a pretty hefty, lease up fee. Probably $100,000 to $200,000 is what a company might charge because they're not collecting any management revenue and they're managing it through the hardest time to manage that asset. We already have property management staff that are there at Stonehaven Townhomes, though, so it's not that expensive for us to manage the lease up with this. And then marketing, we only have $1,000 in there because this asset is across the store from the town grocery store. So we already have the sign. We're going to put a sign in the front yard facing the grocery store that says, "We're open for business. Come sign a lease." And I do not.
The sign's already there.
The sign is already
with the
there.
QR code.
Yeah, it's a very nice. Yeah, it has a QR code. It has a phone number.
Thank you, Rachel.
This thing is not going to struggle to fill. Maybe we'll get 2 signs or something like that. This is going to be an easy asset to fill for sure. And we already have a really expensive and robust marketing plan for Stonehaven Townhomes next door. So there's leases that we can draft off of Stonehaven Townhomes to place in Stonehaven Apartments. So I could spend a long time talking about the many economies of scale, kind of clever things we've done and how we have set up this asset, how we've built the site, how we're constructing the building. And it all comes down to this. It all comes down to managing our operational expenses.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We had a question about our internet contract.
Yeah. So how long is the contract with MetroNet? Any recourse that you can do if service or performance is subpar? Excellent question. So we started our relationship with MetroNet carefully with just one building, and we had a bunch of like clauses in the contract and stuff. And then we did another building, and another building, and another building. And we've had contracts with different providers that we've inherited as we've acquired buildings. And our experience with MetroNet has been by far the best. No one else is even close. Like other companies, they literally don't pick up the phone. You'd think when you're buying 100 internet connections from them, they would answer the phone, but it's still the cable company and they still don't answer their phone. MetroNet, the performance has been fantastic. So eventually we said, hey, if we give you 1,000 units, what is the best deal you can give us? And they have given us a pretty good deal. And we've really led the charge for them. We've been big brand advocates for them. We've put a lot of reciprocity in that relationship, and they've taken amazing care for us. It's a 5-year contract, and that is inclusive of the cost of the data cabling build out. Elaine is signaling me here. She says, "Do you want to talk about NOI and cap rate and value?"
Giving away my typing secrets.
So sure, let's talk about NOI and cap rate and value. So we want to be hopelessly conservative in all that we do. And if you go look at our net operating income here, you can see we're somewhere between 915,000, 860,000 in net operating income. So how do you figure out how much an apartment building is worth? You take the net operating income and you divide it by the cap rate. So let's say that we put this thing at a 6 cap, which I think would be a very conservative cap rate to attach to this. So you divide, we'll take the lower NOI figure as well. So we're going to take 858,000 and we're going to divide that by 6%. That gives us a value of $14.3 million. $14.3 million. It's just a staggering valuation. Now, I think that is being a little too optimistic. I don't think it's really going to be worth that much, but I think it's going to be worth more than the 11.5 because there's so many intangibles in this thing. The solid core doors, for example, the appraiser doesn't put any value on that. So that is $60,000 that we're spending on the asset that we get $0 for when it comes to the appraisal. But I tell you, those solid core doors, they are going to take like $2,000 a year off of our maintenance cost for that building. I promise you, we know the numbers. We've got a lot of units. And that $2,000 of maintenance cost, it goes straight to the bottom line. And that increases the value of that asset. You do that same effort, just dividing by the cap rate. So there's tons of intangibles about this building that's going to make it extremely affordable to operate, and it adds $33,000 to the value of the asset. It's a terrible investment. We're only getting half of that back in the savings there on R&M. So I think that's going to make this building extremely valuable. And again, this will be packaged with Stonehaven Townhomes. So Stonehaven Townhomes, that's a $350,000 a unit product. And when you're building a product at 170, I'm sorry, I'm chuckling here, but we've got a $350,000 product and we're packaging a $175,000 unit product with it, that tends to pull up the cheaper product. Does that make sense? So Stonehaven Apartments by itself, it's definitely worth $11.5 million. Stonehaven Apartments with Stonehaven Townhomes is surely worth quite a bit more. So there's lots of ways to analyze it, and I want to be super conservative here because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know. Maybe there's an earthquake or something like that for the first time in Minnesota, or I don't know what. We like to be hopelessly conservative in our pro formas, but we have lots of different numbers, and they all point to this being a very, very, very successful new construction project that we're unbelievably excited to execute on.
Absolutely. A couple more questions. Will this be part of Fund 4? So yes, this is 100% owned by Fund 4. All the documents have already been signed. The construction loan has already been closed on. This is definitely in Fund 4. So if you'd like to invest in Stonehaven Apartments, you can do so at blackswanfund4.com. And then we had another question. In view of the location and snow, does having covered parking for all spaces make sense? That's an excellent question. So we have 26 garage stalls as part of the front there where they'll have the individual garage door openers.
And those are double deep garages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, the two people can't park side by side, but if there's two people living in the unit, they just have to coordinate with each other to park their two cars in there. And then we have abundant surface parking. So we have many buildings that mirror this, and it helps to, number one, get leases on your covered parking. We only allow year-long leases on our covered parking. We don't allow someone to call us on, November 1st and lease a covered parking unit and then end it on April 1st. It has to be the entire year long. So it puts a little bit of scarcity on those parking units, which creates value because then they lease. And then we know that plenty of people are happy to park, say, their second car, or someone works from home or something like that in the uncovered parking. And there's many apartment buildings that we have in our portfolio that mirror this. There's many apartment buildings in Rochester that, because of their age, don't have any covered parking at all. So that we're able to offer covered parking, I would estimate is, I don't have any data to support this. Is just my gestalt feeling. Probably about 40%, maybe 50% of apartment buildings in the Rochester area have covered parking at all, so that we have abundant covered parking, but a small enough amount of it that there's scarcity such that people will want to lease it. And then the rest of the parking is uncovered, fits with our market very well, and was kind of the optimal thing that we could do because, the garages aren't free to build, right? They do have build cost. So we have parking for everyone. And the right mix of covered parking with those double deep garages and then uncovered parking. Very good.
So great question here on insurance. You mentioned that you built the building in a way that minimizes insurance costs. Would you mind elaborating on that a bit? Thanks. Absolutely. So don't let me bore you here, but there are so many parameters with insurance, and insurance is an area where we save an insane amount of money. We probably pay 75% less than many of our kind of competitors in terms of insurance expense. Lots of things we do. We have a whole module in our course on optimizing insurance and everything. So here's a few examples. So if we were to make this building 2.5 times larger, that would probably double to quadruple its insurance cost because it would put it outside of a replacement classification for many insurance carriers. So if we were to build, let's say, a 200-unit apartment building, we'd probably phase it out into separate parcels and separate entities that could be separately insured because those policies in aggregate would be far less expensive than one large policy. Because the way the insurance provider thinks about that is, shoot, if one unit catches fire and it somehow spreads to all the units, we're in a pickle. We have this huge loss risk, kind of thing. So this building is the optimal size that it's big enough that it has a commercial grade fire suppression system. It has an R13 fire suppression system. It has fire resistive construction. So it uses fire resistant sheathing and stuff like that. But it's not so big that it falls outside of kind of the sweet spot for what insurance carriers are looking for. So this is the type of building that every insurance carrier wants this thing in their portfolio. It's serviced by a high quality fire department. So if you're building in a suburban area that's serviced by a volunteer fire department, well, shoot, all of a sudden you may not be able to get insurance, or your insurance could be like 10 times more expensive. And if you haven't done your homework to figure out, is this a dedicated or a volunteer fire department that serves this area before you dig into things, you could be in for a bad time. Just like we sit down with the city and say, what would you like to see? We literally sit down with our insurance agent and say, what would the best building be like? What would your ideal apartment building be to insure? And our insurance agent would say, well, it'd be between 50 and 100 units and between 10 and 20 million in value. And it has, commercial grade fire suppression systems. It's not like a type 1 construction. It's not like a high rise steel concrete construction, because that gets too expensive on the replacement cost, even though it's more fire resistive. Now the replacement cost has gotten too high. So there's very specific parameters. If you just talk to the people that serve you in your life, and all that you do, I promise you will optimize your outcomes without trying. That's exactly what we've done here. And it is a huge component of our financial success.
Absolutely. A couple more good questions. Do the leases on garage spaces run concurrently with the apartment leases? So yes and no. Someone can move in without having a garage stall, but let's say they're on month 4 of their lease, and let's say it's November, and that's when they want to then lease a garage stall. They would have to lease it through the end of their lease. So they would not be able to say, oh, I just want to lease it during November, December, January, February, the snowy months, and then drop the lease again. They'd have to finish it out. So I would estimate probably about 85% of people go ahead and take a garage spot when they first move in. So if they have a 1-year lease, they have a 1-year garage contract as well. But if they decide to add their garage contract later, it does have to run all the way through the end of the lease. And then Jennifer asked, how do you estimate snow removal cost in Minnesota? So we have vertically integrated snow clearance. That was one of our big projects of 2023. So we bought all the tractors and plows and trucks and snow brooms and all the things that you need to deliver high quality, timely, safe, reducing our liability snow clearance. So we're already there for Stonehaven townhomes. And then as Nick said, our guys will just drive the plows right over. They don't even have to load them back into the truck. They just drive them right on those small city streets right over to Stonehaven apartments and do the snow clearance there. Same with the lawn care. And by bringing lawn and snow in this past year, we have saved probably about 70 to 80% versus our third-party vended data. We had about a decade of third-party vended data, so we knew exactly what we were paying, per building and then portfolio-wide for snow clearance. Turns out we had a year that had very, very little snow. First we had a summer that had very, very little rain, so we didn't have to mow as often. Then we had a year that had very little snow, so we didn't have as much snow clearance. Now we're having a very, very rainy spring and early summer. It doesn't even feel like summer here, despite the fact that it's July. So overall, our snow clearance costs have been much, much lower than if they were third-party vended, because the way a third-party vendor contract works is you just pay a retainer. With ours, we only bill when we actually go out and do the snow or the lawn. Now, obviously, some years will be the opposite. There will be years when there's, very heavy snow. In those years, we predict that our lawn and snow savings might be around 30 to 40% versus third-party vended, but definitely savings every year, kind of no matter the weather patterns. And then we've been very fortunate that the year that we brought these services in-house, we had just extraordinarily favorable weather conditions that lowered those costs that much more. And then again, back to that story of Stonehaven townhomes and Stonehaven apartments and their, co-location with each other drastically reduces all of the expenses for that entire community.
We also architect the building to optimize for snow clearance. So I can tell you about that one. But
Yep, very good. One of the questions was, how long do you expect until our refinance and return of initial investment? So this will be part of Black Swan Fund 4. The plan for Fund 4 mirrors our same plan for Fund 1, Fund 2, Fund 3. You can get all of that information at blackswanfund4.com. But in a quick nutshell, we tell people to plan for about 5-year time frame for total return of capital. Then you have all of your capital back, but you retain your ownership of the fund indefinitely for about a 20 to 25-year time frame. And then during that time, we have quarterly distributions that will go out from future cash flow, from subsequent cash out refis that we do over the years, and then of course from the sale of these assets a few decades from now. This particular project will likely be able to do a cash out refi faster, so that would not return all of the capital of someone's investment inside of Fund 4, because there will be other investments inside of Fund 4, but it'll be an earlier liquidity injection into those returns because of all of the advantages that we've stacked up in terms of the equity. You're looking at the NOI, the costs that we're able to save, all of the work that we've done over the last about 18 months to speed up the timeline here.
One pure advantage in terms of return of capital is the fact that we have already broken ground on this asset. So we'll have some photos of that here for you in just a moment. So we spent 18 months working on this project before y'all have come in, and that absolutely accelerates the return of capital. It's kind of unheard of that you're able to get into a fund on something that's already the architectural work, the engineering work, the permitting work, all the bids from the builders, all that's done, and you've already broken ground. Usually there's a lot of waiting, which lowers the velocity of your capital and extends the time to return capital. So just outrageously efficient that we were able to literally launch Fund 4. Kind of coincidence, but we kind of tried to line it up. Literally able to launch 4 the day that we broke ground on this asset.
One more question, then I'm going to bounce back to the slide so we can finish our presentation. About the EV chargers, do you already have estimates from vendors to install those? Yes. So all of our construction plans are already submitted. All of the budgets are already approved by the architect, the builder, the bank. All of that is already locked. And then in terms of the question was, is the electric infrastructure inside of the building ready? So because it's new construction, we get to decide exactly the electrical specifications that we're going to build to. And so we built to be able to have not only the EV chargers that we know we're already installing, but additional capacity so that we can install even more EV chargers in the future if transportation continues to move in that direction, which we expect that it will. One of the benefits of new construction is you can build it exactly as you want. What are you going to geek out about? You're having like the time of your life. You get to talk about your floor plans, your site plans.
These are the only people I get to talk about with this.
Hey, I listen to you every day talking about this.
I appreciate that. So 99% of the new builds in our area, they use gas heat because it's a very cold climate. So we very consciously decided to do an ultra high efficiency electric magic pack. So it uses electric heat, but the units are so efficient that it works out great, and the tenants actually come out ahead on their utility bill. What that means is we have to get a vastly larger electrical main service sizing for this site, much bigger than you would ordinarily need, that costs more money. But what that means is down the road, we have the ability to add a ton of EV charging capacity to this building without needing new electrical main service. I drive a Tesla. Our director of construction just bought a Tesla today. He just had it delivered today. So I'm sorry, Elaine hates the Tesla. Self-driving is nerve-wracking to her. But this is probably the future. One where maybe it's Tesla, maybe it's Toyota, whatever, but it's probably EV charging. And so this is something we've put an extraordinary amount of thought into. And it's a huge differentiator for us in Stonehaven townhomes that you can get private EV chargers in all of Stonehaven townhomes. That'll be a huge differentiator here. So we already have the panel sizing is correct, and we already have electrical conduit run for several of the garages. So you can imagine there's like wiring, everything there. You just need to put on your EV charger of choice and you're ready to go. And we will charge for that EV charging as well. That'll generate a profit. Those profits are not factored into our pro forma. That's just pure upside when those chargers are installed.
All right. Super good questions, you guys. Thanks for being so engaging. Let's talk about debt. So the debt is already signed. This isn't a proposal that we have in hand. This is a construction loan that is already inked. We closed this construction loan a few hours before we officially launched Black Swan Fund 4. So this came from a local bank who holds the debt on phase 3 and 4 of Stonehaven Townhomes. They were excited to carry on to Stonehaven Apartments. That right there should tell you a lot of things that you need to know about the project. The lender who has the debt on Stonehaven Townhomes was eager to continue to lend on this additional phase of Stonehaven. It's a 5-year term, 3 years of interest-only payments, and 80% LTC. As Nick mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, it's a pay-as-you-go. So we didn't have to put millions of dollars down. As those invoices come in, we'll have to pay those costs up to that first percent that we're responsible for as the owners, and then the construction loan will kick in. And that's important because it drastically lowers the amount of interest that the loan will draw, right? You want to draw the dollar the last possible minute you need so that you're paying as few dollars of interest as possible. Our rate is prime minus 0.9% with a floor of 6% and a ceiling of 9%. We paid only $17,500 for our origination charge. So like a typical origination charge is usually like 1 or 2%. So that would be, say,
couple $100,000.
90 or
Yeah.
180,000 for a loan of this size because we've done so much business with this bank. That's one of the things that they usually do for us is they drastically lower our origination fee. That's important because origination fee is a cost that needs to be paid up front. So the fewer dollars you can put up front into a project, the faster you can get that full return of capital. So that's why that particular lever on our term sheets is so important to us. Most importantly, there's no prepayment penalty. So we have every reason to believe that we'll be able to get this building fully constructed by next spring, get it filled next summer. Hopefully interest rates go down over the next year or two. That's what the Fed is projecting. So if we have the opportunity to do a cash out refi sooner rather than later, we have zero prepayment penalty whatsoever. Oftentimes these loans come with prepayment penalty all the way through, or it will be like, well, your prepayment penalty is only waived in year 4 or 5. It was important for us to have no prepayment penalty whatsoever, and the bank was happy to do that. And then part of the reason that we're able to get such a good construction loan, 3 years of IO, 80% LTC, a rate that's below prime, all of these things, is because it's full recourse debt that Nick and I personally sign on. Our investors are in no way legally responsible for the debt. That's one of the huge benefits of being an LP, a limited partner, is that our investors have no responsibility for the debt. But we pledge our personal balance sheet so that we can stack up all of these advantages in the financing to make our projects that much more profitable. And this loan is already closed. So this is for sure the loan that's happening. This isn't a best case scenario proposal or any of those things. This is for sure the debt that we have on this project, and very excited about what we were able to put together. We just absolutely love working with this local bank. Nick was actually just meeting with them this afternoon.
I was. Important note on this. So I was speaking at a real estate conference 2 weeks ago, and there was like a commercial lender, prominent commercial lender, and he said the days of the 80% LTC construction loan are gone forever. I haven't, written an 80% LTC construction loan since 2022 or whatever, and it's all 60% LTC because it's too expensive. And we had 3 banks that were murdering each other to get the business on this loan. They said that this was the most favorable construction loan they had seen, in probably 2 years or more. We dialed in our costs so effectively on this. So you can, hear all of our, glowing praise we have for our own project. You can look at our pro forma. Who cares what we say? What does the bank say? Like, they're the people that are very sophisticated, looking at tons of projects, looking at our financials very carefully. And they said, wow, this is an incredibly lucrative project. And it was not, we got zero pushback on the 80% LTC. They saw that we had tons of margin for error here.
Absolutely. We have just a few more slides. I know a couple of you are messaging saying, got to get to the kids and dinner and activities and those sorts of things. We have just a couple more slides here. If you're excited about Stonehaven Apartments and you want to jump in, you can do that at blackswanfund4.com. Book a time on our calendars, those sorts of things. We'd love to have you join us as an investor in Stonehaven Apartments. We have, I think, 2 or 3 more slides here. Let's talk about new construction. So I would say the number one question that people have asked when they hear about Stonehaven Apartments is, wow, that sounds so exciting, but I've heard new construction takes so long and is so risky. And there's a ton of truth to that. Hopefully by listening to this story, you see how we've absorbed that timeline and that risk because we've been working on Stonehaven phase 2 and 3 for the last 4 years. And we've been working on this land for about 18 months. So what typically might happen in a private equity fund is the private equity fund closes and then they go out and maybe get some land under contract. It takes 6 to 12 months to close that deal. Then they need to work with the city, zoning, architects, all of those things. That adds another, say, year to the project. And then they break ground, say, 2 years after the capital has been allocated for that project. Most of that work is relatively free. It takes a lot of time. It's Nick going to city council meetings and meeting with the mayor and the economic development agency and countless meetings with the architect and those sorts of things, but it's not very expensive in terms of dollars. So we've been able to absorb all of that by working on this project over the last 18 months. Again, knowing that we would just drop it into whatever private equity fund we had available at that time. And that happens to be Fund 4. And we're super excited about that. What were you going to say?
We were able to make this to where it doesn't take a lot of dollars. Normally it takes a lot of dollars.
Yes.
You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, minimum 100K on engineering and architecture. We just hire the same people over and over again. So we get incredibly favorable pricing from them. They kind of work ahead for us a little bit, maybe I don't know if this project is going to work out, but we'll put some work into it. The people who owned this land were actually very large investors in Fund Two, and they owned this land and said, "Gosh, is there any way you guys can do anything with this land? It's somewhat worthless commercial land. Tough time in a post-COVID world to do commercial development." And so we have been able to improve the value of this land while that seller worked with us and was patient, and that was able to minimize that cost. But normally it is very expensive, and we shouldered a tremendous amount of risk and put a huge amount of our time into this project on the front end. That's how we've been able to create this, pretty fantastic, financial outcome as a result. So again, I don't want to toot our own horn, but there's a lot of work that's gone
Oh,
into making
yes.
this thing
Yes.
happen. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of hours of Nick's time working on this over the last, 18 months or so. Our utilities are already in the ground. When we first laid eyes on this land, it was zoned commercial. It was meant to be like a strip center mall, right? You can imagine kind of the shape of this building would be, a little pizza shop, nail shop, those sorts of things. So we had to get approval to change this to residential zoning. We got approval for a unit density increase. Anytime you're building an apartment building, say like the elevator that we talked about. Well, if you can put 56 units with one elevator versus say 50 or 53, well, then every unit that you get extra is essentially more profit. So we were able to get a unit density variance up to that 56 units. We've talked a ton about the $300,000 tax abatement and how that's so financially advantageous for this project. And then we've already done everything with architect, everything with engineer. Our permit is actually open. I think we opened that like 3 or 4 days after we closed our construction loan. Mm-hmm. Construction has already begun. We have some pictures of the bulldozers there taking down the trees and doing some of that grading that Nick was talking about. And we're completely on target for the building to be delivered to us in March or April of 2025, which is right in line with our busy leasing season. So we're very excited about stacking up all of these time advantages and absorbing all of this risk so that by the time we present this opportunity to our investors, it's about as sure of a thing as you can get with new construction, right? There's always risk. There's always unforeseen things. Like that's real estate, that's new construction, that's investing, being in business in general. But we've absorbed as much of the variables as possible in that early phase so that when we closed our construction loan and offered this to our private equity fund, we would have as much certainty as possible about the success of the project. It was so fun to do a surprise groundbreaking at our Real Estate Real Life event in May. So investors knew they were going to look at Stonehaven. The people that have been out to Real Estate Real Life for many years in a row have seen Stonehaven kind of grow up, from a field to a mature community. And then we actually had everyone get back on the bus, just kind of as a little, decoy, even though we were literally going like 500 feet. And then, 13 seconds later, we're like, surprise, get off the bus again. And they're like, why are we getting off the bus at a field? And then they saw the dirt and the gold shovels and the hard hats, and our builder was there. And so that was so fun. Thank you so much to our team, to the people at Real Estate Real Life that played along, had a ton of fun wearing the hard hats, throwing the sand, using the gold shovels. So our official groundbreaking was in May. As you see there, CRW is our architect, ISG is our engineering firm, Moe's is our builder, Black Swan is the owner and developer. And then actual groundbreaking. So groundbreaking is a ceremonial thing, but actual groundbreaking has happened. So this is the site right there, some of the heavy equipment that we have. This is our builder and our team, Scott Mose and his team. And then this is what the site looks like about a few hours ago.
Yep, real time.
Yeah, so our director of construction was there, and you can see, as Nick said, they're taking out some of the trees, doing some of that grading so that we don't have to build that retaining wall, working with that back neighbor. People talk about a shovel-ready project. The shovels are already going.
The shovel's moving.
And shovels moving. It's very exciting. In summer, which is what you want in, all climates, but particularly Minnesota. So soon the foundation can start to go in, and then the sticks and bricks, so that everything is closed up in time for the winter, so they can work on things like painting, cabinets, all of that interior stuff in an enclosed building through the winter and deliver it to us next spring. So that is Stonehaven Apartments. So fun. I wish I could have been there because I was just there like 5 days ago, and those trees
totally different.
Yeah, the trees weren't taken down yet.
Yeah,
so.
there was 4 foot tall grass and trees everywhere and everything. Again, this is the first asset that's in Black Swan Real Estate Fund 4. We have two additional assets under contract that will go into Fund 4. This is going to be a killer fund. We perceive there to be a very unique time in the market to make a buy, and we are unbelievably excited to be launching Fund 4 hot on the heels of Fund 3. Now is the time to buy. 2023 was a very kind of quiescent year for us, and I'm glad we didn't buy anything because there weren't deals. There are a lot of deals out there right now, and we could not be more excited about Fund 4. So you can go learn more. Go to blackswanfund4.com or book a time on our calendars to chat. There are a few more questions. I'm happy to geek out about this all evening long. You can ask whatever questions you want about construction.
I think we have this question about environmental regulations.
Okay, so there's an outstanding question from Dr. Rose. Are there any environmental regulations that could affect construction? So this is a very astute question because it's common for environmental factors to hold up construction projects. You've probably seen, a front page of the newspaper, disaster for local developer. Turns out there's a blue-footed booby bird or something like that, or wetlands or what the situation is. That we already have open permits means that from a legal perspective, it is impossible for there to be any environmental constraints that would impact us. There are a lot of constraints that impact the project. So for example, I don't even want to think about how many hours of my time talking to city officials, talking to my attorney about some very old encumbrances on the property, specifically an easement that was no longer in effect. And the government agreed that it was no longer in effect. My attorney agreed that it was no longer in effect. I certainly agreed that it was no longer in effect. But what did we have to do to legally get that remedied? And it took us a good month of legal work. And again, that's normally cost that we'd have to shoulder. But we've got a great attorney who does a lot of work for free because he does a lot of work for us that he gets paid for. That's how we were able to de-risk this thing, doing 18 months of work on environmental, on legal, before ultimately closing on the construction loan and breaking ground. So at this point, every investment has risk to it, but 99.9% of the risk associated with new construction has been taken out of the deal. It's kind of unheard of to be able to invest in a ground up construction project where the excavators are already going. We've got our building permit open, and there's very little risk from any of those perspectives. That there could be soil remediation. So we've already done core samples and borings and geotechnical reports and structural engineer analysis. There could be defects in the building code. Well, we've already gotten all of our architectural plans approved. There could be a city engineer that disagrees with how you're managing your stormwater. We already have our stormwater plan approved with the city engineer. The utility providers could disagree about.
It's almost like you've done all of these things.
Yeah. There's about 30 steps on this checklist.
Every time Nick would leave at 6 in the morning, I'm like, you heading back out to Byron today?
Yeah. We got to meet someone else to say no. So all of those no's have been gotten through, and we're at a yes. So we're in a very safe place in terms of this project right now.
Yeah, good questions. Yep. Someone asked how much of Fund 4 is full at this time. So like all of our funds, we are a first funded model. Fund 4 will be a $15 million fund. We have about 11 million of that spoken for. So if you'd like to get into Fund 4 sooner rather than later, if you have questions about rolling over an IRA or 401k or those sorts of things, reach out to Rachel. She can help you with all of that. I will note that both Nick and I and Rachel are out of the office next week. So if you have an investing question, email would be great. Nick and I will be keeping up on email. We're going to work our hearts out to make sure that Rachel gets some just total peace and quiet. She's going to Acadia National Park. Ooh. So we're going to spare her.
We're going to be close by.
I know, we're all going to the Northeast. It'll be fun. But if you need a call or something like that, email would be a great way because our Calendly is probably pretty blocked right now, but we'll try to get you into a manual slot there. But if you want to get into Fund 4, there is a limited window left to get in. blackswanfund4.com. Very good. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending our presentation. I hope we were able to answer all of your questions. If you have any additional questions, shoot us an email, shoot Rachel an email, block a time on our calendar. As I mentioned, if it's in the next week or so, email us for that time so that we can give you a manual slot because we'll be out of the office. You can find a lot more information at blackswanfund4.com. Later in the month, we will have similar presentations for the other two assets that we have identified for Fund 4, which is Georgetown Townhomes that we're closing, I think, July 16th or 17th.
That's what we're shooting for, yeah.
And then Boulder Ridge Townhomes. So we'd love to have you participate. As Nick said, we are super excited about the opportunity that exists in the market right now. And we think it's somewhat limited. We think that as interest rates come down, there are a lot of people waiting in the wings, a lot of people waiting in the sidelines that are going to flood the market, that's going to kind of close up this opportunity.
Yes.
So if you're one of those people that thinks, I'd like to get into real estate in 2024, it's my opinion that mid 2024 is better than late 2024 when those floodgates open and lots more people come into the market and drive up the prices and make it a much more competitive environment. Right now, sellers are eager to sell, brokers are eager to have conversations. We're trying to scoop up as many of these deals as we possibly can. Fund 4 will definitely get Stonehaven, Boulder Ridge, and Georgetown, and then likely one or maybe two additional assets, just depending on asset size. So if you'd like to be a part of this special moment in the market, we would love to welcome you to Fund 4.
Awesome.
Very good. Have a good night, everyone. Enjoy your summer. Enjoy your time. Thank you for coming. We love serving you. Have a wonderful evening.